Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Iron.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Along with John Bruce, my name is Dewey Dailey as we welcome you into this week's show, episode 51 of the podcast here in Southern Ohio as the fall sports season starts to wind down. We've got the state tournament in both volleyball, boys and girls soccer, week 12 of the high school football season. Not a whole lot of teams left for us. We only had 3 teams, coincidentally 2 schools, along with those 3 teams going to the state tournament. We're going to talk a little bit about some cross-country state champs, and then we'll kind of recap Week 11, kind of the teams that are moving on, and we'll quickly mention our stream for Week 12, and that's pretty much it. Obviously, with the 16-team format that we're getting a little bit more used to now, we have a lot more teams advancing into the later rounds of the playoffs, which I think is good for us, obviously, because it gets a lot more people playoff coverage, and we've mentioned how it gives more teams the opportunity to have playoff experience. So it should be a fun episode.
Yeah, it's always good to get that playoff experience. For some teams, it's a little rockier than others, like maybe a certain type of bus line. It's Greyhound. Might have went up and has had a tough trip to Minster, but it's maybe a once in a lifetime opportunity for some schools, or at some point you got to get to the playoffs. So sometimes it's the first time for all of them. But also we had some really cool stuff happen this weekend. It's excited for this episode. It's going to be, if you have been waiting all season for us to talk about football the least, this is probably the episode for you, because we had some really cool stuff happen with some of the schools in our area. And then, as Dewey mentioned, with the football season closing down as well.
And, not sure if we'll do an episode next week. We'll see. I guess it would ultimately depend how much there is to talk about. Whereas, I feel like if any of these 3 teams in the state tournament are able to win the state title, that might be enough for us to have an episode.
Yes.
As well as it also depends, how many teams advance to Week 13. Obviously, in some cases,
let's hope at least 4.
Obviously, in some cases, we're kind of guaranteed, whereas Eastern and South Gallia are playing each other. I think those are the only. That's the only game.
Ironton and Portsmouth.
Ironton and Portsmouth.
Yeah, so we're getting 2.
And we think West and Wheelersburg are going to win, so should be at least 4 that are
It'd be nice
on.
if we can get a 5th in there, too. Or a 6th, 7th, 8th.
Yeah, there we go.
But some of these are going to be long shots, but you know what? That's why you play the game.
So we'll go ahead and jump right into the headlines for episode 51 of the podcast, and we'll start with some cross-country updates as we have a couple state champs. I think a couple teams, I think one team and a couple individual state champs here in Southern Ohio. Yeah,
Fairfield Union, their boys cross-country state champions in Division II, and pretty much dominated. They had 88 team points, which it goes from where you finish. So if you have first place, which they did, which we'll talk about in a second, you get 1 point. And then 2, 3, 4, it goes up. So you want to have the lowest score. They had 88 team points. Second place, I believe Lexington with 123. So that's not close at all.
No.
And it's just pretty much destruction of the rest of the field by Fairfield Union. So congratulations to them. I believe I saw it was their first ever state championship as a school.
There we go.
Which, for Fairfield Union.
They were pretty close last year, weren't they?
Third, I believe. Yeah. Which the next team we'll talk about, it could possibly do that same thing. We'll stick with Fairfield Union for now. Also, back-to-back state championships for Andrew Walton. He repeats as the champion in Division II and, once again, comfortably wins the race. Just an outstanding runner. They have several seniors, with Walton being kind of the headliner, but also Nathan Phillips, who finished 8th. Chase Rendell, hopefully saying that right, finished 15th. Those 2 were all Ohio. Connor Runkle finished 29th. Cordell Runkle, 71st. And then Ryan Boyer and Andrew Ray rounded out their team. So you have 7 runners. You get points for 5. There was only one team, and I believe they finished 4th, that had anyone finish ahead of anyone for Fairfield Union in that slot. So, for 5th place, Runkle was the best finisher. amongst any of the teams.
Right.
So, and like same for his, I assume, brother, Runkle, as well. So they just pretty much dominated throughout. And then Ryan Boyer and Andrew Ray, who didn't technically get points because they finished 6th and 7th, were I think it was the second best 6th place runner and the best 7th place runner. So it was just a really dominating performance by the Fairfield Union cross country team. So we want to say congratulations. Anytime you win a state championship is a great accomplishment. And then especially now, because for whatever reason, cross country and track, they're like, hey, other sports, you get in these other divisions, we ain't going to do it. We're sticking with our low numbers. So makes it even tougher at this point with everything being expanded, and Fairfield Union wins the state championship. And Andrew Walton. Joining Andrew Walton was Athens' Sophia Szlosi, who won by 29 seconds over the second place finisher for Athens. Just dominating. Only a junior. And the key thing that I'll get to on the Athens girls cross country team, who finished 3rd, their entire team is back for next year. So I could see them doing what Fairfield Union did, jumping from 3rd to 1st. Definitely will have a great chance. Andy Corrigan also finished All-Ohio. She finished 17th. Just an outstanding performance by those two teams. You know, Szlosi, we talked about her last year a little bit as she had a really nice run at the state. I believe she won like the 3,200 in the spring. It's something, I don't know. Do you like running?
I don't.
I don't either.
I don't
so
at all.
The fact that these kids are able to do it at such a high level means they obviously love it and do it obviously very well. Both dominating the Division II races for Szlosi and Andrew Walton. And then also White Oaks, Landon Air finished 4th. I believe he was the best overall finisher from the Southeast District besides, the winners as well. So great season for cross country in the Southeast. I know we don't really talk about it a whole lot. Maybe nobody from either anyone's going to even watch it that we're going to talk about it, but we want to make sure, shout those schools out as, that's a heck of an accomplishment.
And then obviously, John, we have 3 teams, only 2 schools, but 3 separate teams with Minford, both boys and girls soccer, advancing to the Final Four, and then Adena winning the regional title this past Saturday over Wheelersburg, advancing to their 11th Final Four. So a lot going on for us this week in terms of state tournaments.
Yeah, so Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll have updates from the Minford soccer games. Thursday, I believe Derek will have updates from Adena at the state volleyball. So we got some big things coming up this week. If you're watching this episode on Tuesday, which based on our numbers, more than likely you are, because that's when people watch. Right. The most important thing in the world is happening on Tuesday night in Centerville, Ohio, as Minford will take on the Madeira Amazons, which we'll talk about and preview a little bit later. I forgot they were the Amazons. Like, I watched them play once, and they were really, really good. So, I mean, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. I believe they're the Warriors. No, they're the Mustangs.
Who is?
Madeira. So I don't really know.
Amazon Warriors?
No, they're just the Amazons.
Oh.
They go by the Amazons for whatever reason. So, but like, it's not like the Blue Devils and Blue Angels where it's like just like, oh, a cool little thing. No, it's like Mustangs to Amazons. Like, that's completely different. But they're very, 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 very good. And like I said, we'll preview that a little bit more. Lexi Conkle gets the game winner, and assisted by Ava Cronin. Addie Lemon had a great game in goal for them, and a lot of seniors in that group for Minford, and they make it to the Final Four. So no other school in the Southeast District has had a boys and girls soccer team qualify at all, let alone in the same year. So they will join, Minford joins the Wheelersburg boys, Uniota boys, Lucasville Valley boys, and Alexander boys as the schools that have made it from the Southeast District. And the girls join Lynchburg Clay, Marietta, and Eastern Brown. Now,
I'm surprised Wheelersburg's never made it.
They just haven't had a program very long. They've made it to the regionals a couple of different times, so they've had a great program. And their only 2 losses this year for the Wheelersburg girls were 2 teams in the Final Four, so they lost to Minford, and then they also lost a overtime game last week to Worthington Christian, and Worthington Christian ended up getting to the state. So the boys on Sunday were able to get an overtime goal from Gavin Downey. I love it. Like, I'm sorry, it's you gotta make sure the ball goes in the net. Like, Miles Montgomery pretty much scored it, but Gavin Downey made sure to like put an exclamation point on the goal.
Is there a video of it?
Carson did.
I remember somebody saying something about it, but I never actually went and saw it.
Carson posted it on X, the everything app. So it was on there. It was very close to going in anyway. So, but you know what? You got to make sure it goes in, because you don't want to be, if you're Gavin Downey, you don't want to like look back for the rest of your life. Like, why didn't I just hammer that ball into the net and Grandview Heights has someone save it? So, so Minford advances in both boys and girls soccer. Just an outstanding accomplishment. Once again, we'll talk more about it later, but also Adena wins their 11th regional championship in volleyball. If there is a harder team to score on, I can't imagine that. And their defense, especially their back row defense, is unbelievable.
Oh, man.
What?
That was just the video.
Funny. So their back row defense is unbelievable. They do a really good job of blocking hitters, but it felt like every time that Wheelersburg was ready to make a run or put a play down, Kimmy Dalton's just flying from the back.
Are we talking about volleyball?
Volleyball now, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Kimmy Dalton makes a diving play, keeps the play alive, and then it's going to go to one of the two hitters. And it was actually Corinne Day on Saturday that really did more of the heavy lifting. Katie Burns had a great game as well, but it was like Corinne Day did the senior thing and kind of carried them through. So 11 times for Adena as regional champions. That Wheelersburg team, once again, we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but they are going to be back in a big way next year as they return 7 of their top 8.
I was going to say, I think Perkins was the only one.
Yeah, Perkins, who's outstanding. First team All-Ohio. Right. Yeah, you've got a lot to replace there, but you've got a really nice basis for that. And this Adena team, well, we've kind of joked about it. Like, they've played the underdog role all year. They've to me, kind of talked themselves into the underdog role, but they did have to replace a lot from last year. Right. But anytime you have the coaching staff that they have, you're going to have a chance. And if you have that back row, they fly around. Like Cameron Sowers, J.C. Smith are in there too. Katie Burns gets like 8 to 10 digs a match too. So they have a really, really, uphill match on Thursday as they play a 2-time defending state champion, which we'll break down a little bit later also. But, if any team can do it, I would think it would be a Laura Smith team, especially one that plays defense as well as this one does.
So,
if you want to watch that match.
Minter Lake Catholic. I was going to ask if it was a Catholic school. That's usually where the trouble.
Yes.
The hill maybe gets a little steeper.
Yeah, and they're back-to-back state champions, and now they only have 3 regulars back from that have played in the last 2 years in both those games, but
that's good.
Yeah, but I put their heights on here. They are not small. Yeah, and they have 4 different hitters, so that makes things a lot more difficult defensively. But with how Adena covers, it's going to be, they're going to have a chance. They're going to battle, and it should be fun. Excited for one of our teams to get there, and I think in the future, I think more teams will be able to. I think Warren might have got there as well.
We haven't had a whole. We obviously, it's very. It's a very big accomplishment to make it to the Final Four, but for me personally, I've really only been involved with SOSA for 3 years, and really, I would only say super involved the last 2 just because of the podcast. Because really, before I'm just looking at games, we're broadcasting, but now with the podcast, you're kind of diving a little bit deeper into all the sports. And I don't think we've had too many teams make it to the actual state final. I know Vinton County girls basketball made it. I think in 2020, I think it was my senior year in high school, so I really wasn't even doing too much. Did Fairland make it? Or did they lose in the Final Four?
Lost in the Final Four.
Oh, yeah, it was by a point, wasn't it? And then I think maybe Lynchburg Clay Soccer maybe made it one time.
They have not made it to the final, but they made it to four. Yeah,
right. That's
so
what
they
I'm
made
saying.
it.
We've had a bunch of teams make it to the Final Four.
Back-to-back years, we had Eastern Brown in 21, and then Lynchburg Clay in 22.
Yeah.
And then in 21, we also had Adena and South Webster in volleyball.
Yep.
Uniota Soccer in 21. And then, yeah, it's so. I mean, we've had some teams do it. Ironton football has as well.
They made it to the state title game, I think 2 years ago, maybe. So.
Yeah, so I mean, we've had some success. We haven't had anyone get over the top. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit earlier. We've had it in sports that maybe aren't looked at as much, which would be
Courthouse baseball went to the Final Four.
Logan
coverage.
Logan Elm softball last year.
Yep.
Yeah. So, we've had some teams do it. It's just hopefully with the more divisions, we can take advantage of that and do so. So, I did look it up. Warren, we've technically streamed games with them before. They definitely will not be watching this, but they made it in division.
Did we? Oh, Waverly and Warren.
Yeah, Waverly and Warren, yeah. And, they made it also from the Southeast District, so hopefully they can show out and play well as well. So it's always good anytime you get teams that can make a run like some of these teams have been able to so far this year.
All right, so we're going to jump into the football segment of the show. It's going to be relatively quick. Pretty much what's going to happen here is we're just going to kind of go through and highlight all of our playoff winners. And obviously we'll talk about.
And this is in no particular order because
right.
When I put this together, I was definitely just going like, "Oh, who won?" and
right.
just putting it down.
So if we had an area team that played a non-area team and lost, I don't believe it'll be on here. These are all just teams that won, so that's all we're really going to be talking about. In this part. And I think we're going to save Portsmouth and Amanda for last since that was the game we broadcasted, so we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into that one than the other ones. But I'll just go through the list of teams that won, and then we can kind of, maybe jump around and talk about any specific games that we want to. So Jackson wins 21, and obviously all these are also down on the ticker as well. Jackson...
Dewdog puts a lot of work in on the ticker, so if you like it, great. If you don't, okay.
Jackson beats New Philadelphia 21-14. Rock Hill takes down Madison Plains 30-21. Ironton a big win over Worthington Christian 68-14. Wheelersburg takes down Barnesville in an upset win 24-7. I feel like a lot of people didn't think Wheelersburg was going to win that game for some reason.
I think it was just a long bus ride.
Waverly takes down Fairfield Union on the road 28-21. I think that one was also one that, even me personally maybe thought Fairfield Union might win.
With how Waverly ended their season. 3 straight losses and didn't do a great job stopping the run, and then Fairfield Union appeared to be a run-heavy team, and they end up, we knew they were going to score. That was like the big thing. We knew Waverly was going to score. Right. It was just, were they going to score enough? And they didn't really have to score a crazy amount. 28 points is, it's a nice amount.
Right.
It's
probably below their season average, I would assume. So, and then just a few more. Logan Elm takes down the Electrics.
Yes.
Philo 41-21, and Athens takes down Linden McKinley 21-8. Eastern defeats Strasburg Franklin 30-16. South Gallia picks up their first playoff win in school history over Frontier 56-14. We had 3 playoff games in Portsmouth as Notre Dame wins 34-12 over Shadyside, and West takes down Chesapeake 40-24. Any games you want to dive into before we talk about Portsmouth and Amanda? Maybe the Waverly and Fairfield Union game?
I just think like with Waverly, Fairfield Union, that's kind of what this senior class was kind of building to, was trying to get over the hump. They've gotten to week 11. They've lost the last 2 years. They're finally able to take that next step and get a big win. Now they've got a super run heavy team in Indian Valley. But you know what? You get on the bus, you get a chance to go compete. It's going to be a tough one, but that's why you play the game. That's also why you played Mount Healthy. That's why you play some of the teams they've played in the non-conference to get ready. That's why you play a Wheelersburg. I mean, obviously it's a conference game, but you play these games to try to get better for the postseason, and it appears that Waverly has done so and making it to week 12. So not a lot of teams around here have done it. So congrats to the Tigers. Mason Kelly's got if Mason Kelly breaks the school record for passing yards, I will predict they win, because that's going to be a little over 400. Is that what it is?
Yeah, he was a little over 600 away, and I think Derek said he threw for like 245. So he would need a bigger performance.
Yeah,
and it's possible, right? I mean, he's definitely probably thrown for more yards in a game than he would need for the record, but against an opponent in Indian Valley, it's going to be tough. But
right.
We'll see. Obviously, like I said, he's had games like that. I don't think I was looking to see who all scored for Waverly in the game, and I'm guessing the Max Preps isn't updated. I don't think Dres Bolin is on Waverly anymore.
No.
So, he's on there. But
I think he scored. He scored for Paint Valley.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I thought he was on Paint Valley, so that's why I was kind of confused by that one. So, in the game, Waverly kind of got out to a good start. They led 21-7. They led 21-7 with around 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. It never got closer than a 14-point game, because Fairfield Union never got closer. I guess the closest it ever got was 7, because it was 21-7, then it was 21-14, and then Waverly got it back up to 28-14. So, yeah, Waverly kind of a wire-to-wire win. I say kind of, and I think it was a wire-to-wire win for them. And the only concern we really had for Waverly, like you said, was to stop the run. And, we've mentioned it a lot. Like, if you're a run-first team, it's obviously going to be harder to score a ton of points because of how much clock it eats up. And, that's kind of what was confusing about, giving up 49 points to, a Northwest team that really, might throw the ball 2 or 3 times out of 50 plays. So really for Waverly, even if you struggle against the run, if you can limit the 10-plus yard plays on the ground, more times than not, you're going to be able to win, because you operate in an offense to where you can both throw and run. We highlighted, how Bill Asano was doing very well for them on the ground, and it goes without saying how well they're able to move the ball through the air. So I believe against Indian Valley next week, they're a pretty heavy underdog. I don't know much about Indian Valley, but I feel like Waverly already was the underdogs once. I forget what the line was for the Fairfield Union game. I think it was single digits, I believe, but I know Fairfield Union was favored going into last Friday. As of now, and Indian Valley is undefeated, 11-0. It's a 33-point line as of now. So Waverly is a 33-point underdog. It's on the road. I think it's a pretty far trip to Indian Valley.
Yeah.
So, we'll see.
Noonan Hutton. I think the G is silent. Noonan Hutton, I believe.
I know where Indian Hill is. I don't know where
Indian Valley is. I'm not gonna bring it up to you again, because you kind of blanked on it last week when I kind of talked about it off the air. But Bobby Huggins is from around there. I believe he went to one of the two, because it used to be Indian Valley North and Indian Valley South. I don't remember which one he went to, but his dad was the basketball coach, and they had a lot of success there. And then he ended up at Cincinnati, Kansas State, and West Virginia, and he liked the grandpa's old cough medicine. But in Indian Valley is a pretty run-heavy team. I know that let me find the. I want to make sure it's Grady Kinsey. I believe missed last week, but on the year, Grady Kinsey 2,347 yards rushing, 33 touchdowns. Yeah, so they are a very run-heavy team behind Kinsey. But if Kinsey's out, which it appears he did not play last week, you never know. Like, it's one of those things you gotta try to cut the head off the snake, and that's kind of, I would assume 2,347 yards is probably the snake for them. So it's gonna be tough for Waverly, but stranger things have happened.
I'm sitting here reading the write-up for that game, And
are there any players' names just deleted that were already put in
No.
because they got edited out?
No, I'm just trying to get...
because I don't know whose stories that would happen to.
But like just looking in here, I think Sparks, I think Mason Sparks caught a couple touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Asano had a 37-yard touchdown run, which I think is a part of their offense that they didn't maybe have as consistently at the beginning of the season. So I think that's a big addition for them. For Owen Ruff, it says he had a 50-yard run that was maybe called back. I'm not sure if that was a touchdown. I was trying to find a final stat line for Ruff, but I'm not seeing one in the write-up. It said
that's rough.
It is rough. Their quarterback, I forget his first name, but I remember his last name was Clark. Maybe it was Hudson Clark was maybe what it was. I can't remember. But, he only had 69 passing yards. He did have a touchdown pass. We mentioned he wasn't. They don't throw the ball a whole lot because, Clark on the ground had 136 yards on 21 carries. And, we mentioned Isaiah Sala as well. He had 75 rushing yards on 9 carries. So, yeah, and like I said, I'm not able to find Owen Ruff's stat line on this article anywhere, but just from Clark and Sala's numbers, it seems like they were fairly efficient. But I think what Waverly must have done is they limited the large chunk plays for touchdowns, and if you don't get those, the clock
chunk
the clock is just going to continue to run. So. Big win for the Tigers moving on to Week 12.
Yeah, speaking of moving on to Week 12, a team that we were really high early in the season then kind of fell off a little bit was Logan Elm. They are...
One more thing. Bill Asano had 133 yards and 2 touchdowns on 22 carries.
Yeah, that's something they weren't getting early in the season. Yeah. I mean, that's just, we were impressed with what he...
And his name was spelled wrong in the article, so that's
not surprising.
Sebastian.
Yeah, so outstanding finish for the season for him. And, they got another one in Week 12, so good luck to the Tigers. And do Tiger Town proud. I think they're always proud, but especially with moving on to Week 12. So speaking of, like I said, another team that we were high on throughout the season, Logan Elm, ends up moving to 8-3 with a 41-21 win over the Philo Electrics, which was not nearly as close as the score would indicate, as it was 41-6 late in the fourth quarter, as Philo scored twice in the last 4 minutes. So a just utterly dominating performance for Logan Elm. And one of the big things about playing in like the Mid-State League is you see different defenses and you see teams that can attack you in a variety of different ways. Philo could attack you in one ways, which was the run. They were 2 of 11 passing for, 1 yard. 1 yard. 2 of 11 passing for 1 yard and 2 interceptions. So you probably should have just not passed in that situation. So Logan Elm able to completely shut down the offense for Philo until, like I said, the last 4 minutes of the game. Aaron Walters was efficient, 15 of 21 for 160 yards, 3 touchdowns. Michael Bach doing what he did all year, 37 rushes for 208 on the ground. He had a couple touchdowns as well. Joshua Hunter had 2 touchdown receptions through the air. Preston Piacentini
There you go.
had 1 as well. And then Cameron Drake also had a rushing touchdown. So a very impactful win for Logan Elm as they move on to Week 12. Move on to 8-3. They got to go not that far up the road to New Lexington, which, they're pretty big underdogs in that instance as well. I believe 27 points. But, you once again, you never know until you play the game. And this is a Logan Elm team that has played a tough schedule throughout the year. A lot of teams aren't going to play teams as tough throughout the year on a week-to-week basis, like a Miami Trace, in the non-conference. It was still a good St. Trace team. I know they probably were a little underachieving, but it's still a solid team. Then you play Bloom Carroll. Hamilton Township was playing for their playoff lives, and they were able to beat them as well. So they were actually 2-point underdogs against Philo, and then just absolutely just housed them. So very impressive performance from Michael Bach, Aaron Walters, and the Braves.
All right, we can go ahead and talk about Portsmouth and Amanda-Clearcreek. It was the game we live streamed in week 11, and I believe Portsmouth was like 11-point favorite, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it was too much. Either way, when the game started, Amanda jumps out to a 13-0 lead earlier, maybe a questionable 2-point try
that was
after
the game.
The second touchdown. I wouldn't say it was the game necessarily.
It started to turn the momentum.
As it was 35-16
And
was the final.
And you have one of the best kickers we saw all year.
Right. Hayden Dunn is a very
impressive
impressive kicker, and he's only a junior, so he'll be back next year for the Aces. But Amanda jumps out to a 13-0 lead in the first quarter. It was a 61-yard receiving touchdown for Tommy Stye. I believe it was like 3rd and 13 on that as well. And then they forced, I believe it was a 3-and-out. If not, it was like one new set of downs and then 3-and-out. But they put together another scoring drive that was capped off by Tommy Affolter on a 3-yard rushing touchdown. And then after that, it was 28 unanswered points for the Trojans, spanning all the way, I think, until the fourth quarter when Amanda added on like a 30-some yard field goal.
Very valuable.
It was like 33-yard field goal from Dunn to make it 28-16. And then the Trojans added on late, making it 35-16. I believe Highland had 3 or 4 touchdowns. I can't remember off the top of my head.
2 rushing, 2 receiving.
Yeah,
JT Williams had a really nice night.
And then Lucas Bradley had one of the crazier touchdowns we've seen this season. It was over 60 yards. I think it was 63 yards maybe was how long it was.
63, 61, something along those lines.
It was a play that was seemingly a run play, and there was a bad snap, but like none of the linemen went downfield. But all of the secondary ran up towards the line, and Bradley just kind of leaked out to the far sideline. JT Williams dumped it off to him, and he did the rest. It's not, it was just a 50-yard dash to the end zone for Bradley. So a big win for the Trojans. It was their first playoff win at the Coliseum since it was built in 2009. I think the last time they hosted, it was either the last time they hosted a playoff game or the last time they won a home playoff game was at Municipal Stadium in like 2002 or something. Yeah. So it's been a while for the Trojans since they've won a home playoff game, and it was the first one at the Coliseum. So they'll get a rematch with Ironton in week 12
fun.
now.
Yeah, but JT Williams was outstanding. He ran for almost 100 yards in the first half, ended up over 100. Highland was just under 100, but he was over like 130 all-purpose. JT Williams also threw for over 100 and had 3 touchdown passes. So it was, it was a great response for Portsmouth after getting down 13-0. Like things could go downhill in a hurry because you're the favorite. You get off to a bad start, and you're losing, and they immediately just responded in a big way. And it was actually 13-0 after the first quarter, and then it just started to pile on for the Trojans after that. So really impressive performance. Amanda, they doubled their wins from last year, which was 3 more than they had the previous year. So they finished 6-5, but a good season for them. For Portsmouth, that was their 8th win. So another good year for the Trojans. Probably ends this week as you got to go to the tank and play Ironton after losing to them in week 10. But it's you never know. You're going to make some adjustments going into week 12. They just line up and play your hearts out.
And quickly before we move to our lone preview for week 12, we'll go through and say who each team is playing in week 12. So I'll go through the list in the same order. So obviously we mentioned Portsmouth will be on the road at Ironton. I believe Ironton is the only team besides Eastern that also West. Yeah. So it's West, Eastern, and Ironton are the 3 teams that are hosting.
Those are our streaming options.
Right. So.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we haven't talked about them like at all this year. Bloom Carroll had Thathanavon.
Thanthanavong.
Yeah.
Ethan Thanthanavong.
Yep. Had a 3rd and 38 that he completed on the last drive. They ended up coming back. They lost by 6 to Bishop Hartley earlier in the season. They beat them 44-43 in what we had kind of jokingly been like, oh, we should go stream that game, but we don't really cover either school, but it would have been a heck of a game to go to. So
it was like 24 to like 21 at the end of the first quarter
Yeah.
or something ridiculous. So.
Yeah, so those are our Mid-State League brethren over there with Bloom Carroll, so congrats to them for moving on. But yeah, go ahead.
All right, so Jackson is a 34-point underdog at Bishop Watterson.
Also, my niece went there. It's a terrible stadium. Like, it's Jackson people. You're going to be proud of what you have at Alumni Stadium after you go to Watterson. Now, Watterson actually has a nice stadium, but it's also in the middle of town and it's right by campus, and they do not have enough room for bleachers on both sides. So they only play JV games. So I get to see my niece cheer there.
There you go.
But it's pretty sick. But yeah,
Rock Hill, a 14-point underdog at Cincinnati Country Day.
the Nighthawks.
We mentioned Ironton, a 37-point favorite, hosting Portsmouth. Wheelersburg on the road at Union Local, a 22-point favorite.
How about the gas mileage that Wheelersburg's putting in this week?
Yeah.
Between Barnesville and Union Local, but they are a heavy favorite this week. So keep rolling, Pirates.
Then we mentioned Waverly at Indian Valley, a long road trip for the Tigers, also 33-point underdogs. Logan Elm on the road at New Lexington, a 27-point underdog. I believe New Lexington, it was like their first time since maybe 2013 that they won their league, or maybe it was the first time that they beat Sheridan.
Yeah, they hadn't beat Sheridan in a long time, and that's their big rival.
I put that down in my notes for that Adena New Lexington volleyball. It's going to be like, hey, it's been a pretty good week for New Lex, and then they got beaten straight sets, so I didn't feel it was very appropriate to bring it up anymore. Athens, after taking down Lyndon McKinley, a 38-point underdog at Steubenville.
A team from the Southeast has beat the Big Red. Chillicothe beat them 14-13 in 2001, I think.
There you go.
A block extra point from Joey Davis, former Neff's great
There you go.
in the Cider Valley Youth League.
Eastern, they took down Strasburg Franklin. They will host South Gallia. Eastern is a 7-point favorite. We're getting ready to preview that game. Rematch of their SOC1 league matchup earlier on this year. Notre Dame will head to Danville, a 43-point underdog, and West will host St. Bernard Elmwood Place, 18-point favorite for the Senators.
Yeah, St. Bernard Elmwood Place, their conference is not great.
You're saying you wouldn't give it any booms?
No booms.
One boom.
Yeah. So Elmwood Place has a school record of wins with 9 this year. So, and they won their first ever playoff game. So shout out to them. But I think the Rock is where it ends for them. Which, as someone who went to the Rock in San Francisco at Alcatraz, it ended for a lot of people there too.
It did.
Yeah. Fun fact.
All right, we can go ahead and jump into the preview. Hopefully, as of now, it looks like this will be the game we'll live stream this week down in Eastern as the Eagles host South Gallia, the second meeting between the Eagles and Rebels this season. Eastern a perfect 11-0. They finished up the SOC1 league season 6-0. South Gallia finishes the regular season at 7-3. Or actually, I believe they finished the regular season at 6-3. I think they missed a week. If I remember correctly.
Green. I believe it was Green. It might have been East.
It was one of the two. So South Gallia only with 10 games through 11 weeks. But they did finish 5-1 technically in the SOC1. Whoever it was ended up being a forfeit, I'm assuming. So, what?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, like I said earlier, this is a rematch of their Week 9 SOC1 matchup. It was in Crown City. At the time, I believe the Rebels were actually a favorite in this game, if I remember correctly. Either way, Eastern ends up winning 13-12. We talked about it in our Week 9 recap episode. I believe that would have been episode 49, maybe.
Yeah.
Is when we would have talked about that. Maybe 48.
It was 49. Well, we would have previewed in 48 and talked about it in 49.
Right. But Eric Manley Jr., they converted like a third and I think 13 or something. He did it with his legs on the ground, and then the next play he hooked up with Boston Webb for a game-winning touchdown. And in that matchup, and I don't have the stats written down. I would have to go back in the older version of our scripts to really get the information.
We gotta just start making a week by week thing.
Yeah, but South Gallia, defensively, they've been fairly solid this year, and they kind of shut Eastern down, at least below their averages in that Week 9 game.
South Gallia had 6 turnovers in the game. That was the big thing, was even though their defense played obviously very well, you can't turn it over 6 times.
Right, and that's what a lot of people are talking about. It's if they only turned it over 3 times, or if they only turned it over 4 times, like this may have been a different game. And I think obviously that's a fair point. But in the game for the Eagles, Eric Manley Jr., 10 of 24, only a 42% completion percentage, 132 yards. He did throw 1 touchdown, but he also had 2 interceptions. So obviously Manley, he's had a great year for the Eagles. Not his best night, and obviously that's shown in the 13-12 final. Brady Moore, their lead back in that game, held to under 2.5 yards per carry. He had 18 carries for 43 yards. Brewer Tomlinson had a rushing touchdown. And Boston Webb, who I think is 3rd on the team in both receptions and receiving yards, led the way with 5 for 60. Tucker Leist leading the Eagles by a lot in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Held in check in Week 9. He only had 2 grabs for 29 yards. Once again, the Rebels seemingly doing a very good job taking away the main weapons of the Eagles. And, for South Gallia, since then, they're riding high, right? They obtained their first playoff win in school history last week with a win over Frontier. As it stands, Eastern is a 7-point favorite at home. So, kind of a home-and-home 2-game series for these 2 teams this season. And this will be just the second time we've seen South Gallia play in anything, as we saw their really good girls basketball team last year. But this will be our first time getting a look at the Rebels in football. So, and really for Eastern, this is a very different team from last year, right? New quarterback, a new main receiver, I believe a new tailback as well. I think Wyatt Richardson was one of their main backs last year, and he's kind of, if you look at the stats, it seems like he's moved into a more of a wide receiving role. At least that's what the stats show. So for Eastern, I think it's kind of a new team for them too. Obviously, we've mentioned it's only about a 10-year-old program, and they've gotten to heights that you don't really see with typically with a program that, especially a Division 7 school that's only been around for 10 years. Scott Tomlinson has done a great job down there.
Yeah, the coaching staff's done an awesome job there at Eastern Pike. The winner of this game will move on to Week 13 for the first time in school history, as Eastern last year for the first time got to Week 12, losing that heartbreaker to Waterford that you can, if you want to, look back on our SOSA streams. But this one should be fun to do. I mean, they were good to us last year. Based on your conversations already, it sounds like they're going to be good to us again this year. Looks like it's going to be a nice night. Fingers crossed.
Hopefully. Probably more than likely be our last football stream of the year. I don't. After Week 12, it goes to a neutral site.
Goes to a neutral site, but there's a couple where...
A couple games at Chillicothe, aren't there?
Yeah, it could. Well, it'll be announced then, but there's a possibility we could get, say a Chillicothe or a Portsmouth somewhere where we've had some stuff before. I think we could we'll just kind of see. We'll make a decision when the time comes, but it's kind of, this is for sure.
Play by ear.
Yeah. So this one.
This is our last, I'm sure.
Guaranteed that we're doing. Yep. So yeah. So make sure you tune in on Friday if you're not going to another. Well, even if you are going to another game, make sure you tune in on YouTube. It should be a fun one. So, yeah. So I wanna talk about something real quick that's off script. When I made my face, so I'm trying to find the High State Texas score. That's the
start at 10:30, don't
not
they?
10.
Oh, 10.
Buckeyes up 20-13 right now.
12:30
left in the first half. But here's the crazy thing: on ESPN's app, it said,
the GameCast.
Yeah, the pregame though was Texas opens up at home. The game's in Las Vegas, and also Texas is number 19, and Ohio State to start the game was 1.5 point favorites. I don't
neutral site.
Yeah, neutral site. I don't fully get it, but you know what? Go Bucks.
But the line is also based a lot on
people,
right? So,
yeah.
I mean, if let's say Idaho was playing Alabama, if enough people were taking the Idaho money, that might be a little bit of an extreme example, but you get what I'm saying. The money line is or the spread is based a lot on who people are taking. So.
Yeah. So for this next thing, I want to do a little different because we usually do recaps and then previews. What I want to do is I want to recap and preview at the same time. So like where I'll start with the Minford girls, I'll recap, and then I'll talk about their upcoming game. Does it sound good?
Yeah.
I know you are very all in on the soccer stuff, so it will be a lot of me. So I think I could pretty much have done whatever I wanted, but I wanted to clear it with you.
You been having car troubles lately?
Me?
Yeah.
Not yet. Yeah, you did. You love deer.
Yeah, I've hit 2 deer in the last 4 weeks. Maybe the first one was like, I think I just like gave him some like sweet chin music. But this last one I gave a gut shot. I think he was fine though, because when I drove by the next day he wasn't there. But my car got banged up pretty bad, and there's a good place around here. You can take your cars that get beat up, and that's the Perfection One Collision Center. Now serving Southern Ohio families and student athletes in both Pickaway, Ross, and Pike counties. They've been doing it for over 30 years. They're one of the oldest collision centers in the state, featuring state-of-the-art equipment, technology, and manufacturing certifications. All certifications may vary by location. Perfection One. We meet by accident and are highly recommended.
You know what's really convenient about Perfection One?
What?
We do the podcast in Pike County. You live in Ross County, and to get to school, you drive through Pickaway County. So you've got all kinds of options for the next time you hit a deer.
Yeah.
Please don't do it anymore.
If I didn't hit the deer within,
it's almost always like a mile or two from
Oh,
your house,
absolutely. Yeah, I was probably, like, distance-wise, maybe, like, probably half a mile, but, like, in terms of driving time, it took me, like, 2 minutes to get home after I hit it, so it was like, I just kind of drug my car into the garage, slammed it, and I just went to bed. I wasn't dealing with that. It was, like, 11:30.
I got
time to go to bed.
Get a text about, I hit another deer, and then I'm like, you all right? And you just didn't respond, which meant you clearly just went to bed. Or, Patrick Mahomes is hobbling off the field. He's being helped. I guarantee he sits out 0 place. But, moving on.
I don't know. The Red Rifle 2.0 is warming up.
Oh, man.
Carson Wentz.
He's so bad. He was so good. He was so good for like half a year. Was he the actual MVP or did golf win it?
Well, I think he was the front runner until he tore his ACL.
Oh, yeah, he did get hurt. Yeah.
And then they won the Super Bowl that year. So.
Yeah.
I thought he actually won an MVP. Did he not actually? No, he never got it.
No.
He definitely would have in 2017.
Did golf win it?
You start talking and I'll look it up.
You got to talk about Jared Goff before. We can't interrupt Minford girls soccer with Jared Goff
Tom
talk.
Brady.
Oh, of course.
I think that was his last one. I don't know. He may have won one. Did he win one when he was in Tampa? Because he went crazy that year. Oh, no, Aaron Rodgers got it. I forgot about that.
Good guy. Great teammate.
All right. Let's jump into the soccer.
Yeah, so big week in soccer on the boys and girls side. But first, we're going to start with the regional soccer, kind of recap, and then go into a preview. First, Minford girls. Minford girls. 1-0 win in Saturday's regional championship game over Grandview Heights. Lexi Conkle with the game-winning goal, which was her 42nd of the year, 147th of her career. She is now tied for 11th all-time in the state of Ohio. Not bad at all. Give the assist to Ava Cronin. Addie Lemon, 5 saves on the day. Just been really good overall. Their defense, led by Ella Estep and Marley Pendleton, have been outstanding throughout the season. You also throw in, what Lemon is able to do between the pipes, and, if you've seen Addie Lemon play this year, you wouldn't forget her name. She's been outstanding for the Falcons. Only a sophomore, I believe. I thought she was a sophomore last year, but only a sophomore. Lemon's done a great job. Now they have 9 seniors on their roster. A lot of them start, a lot of them play big minutes, but they were led by their 3 seniors in their 3-1 win over Lynchburg Clay earlier in the week in the regional semi. Conkle, Maggie Reisner, Lexi Pendleton all scored in that one. Conkle and Reisner each had an assist as well. Sadie Tiemann also had an assist. I don't think they actually credited her. I'm giving her one because she got fouled on the play and the ball went to Reisner to score from deep. Now, they are, a group. It's the first time they've ever won a district, and so they decided, let's win a regional while we're at it. So now, kind of moving on to, kind of the preview for them. They are on Max Preps. They are listed as the number 3 team in the state. So that is just based off of who they've beat, and whatnot, and who they've played and everything. So Cincinnati Madeira is number 1. There's some issues coming, which I'll get into. Now, Southeast District in soccer, boys and girls, is a combined 0-9. Someone's got to break through from the state semis and get to the final. I don't know if either of these teams do it this year, but you got to, at some point, we're going to get through. But this is the first time in the Final Four for Minford. They have scored, the average score in 6.74 goals a game, give up less than a goal a game. Their defense has been outstanding throughout the year. Led by Lexi Conkle, 42 goals, 9 assists. Maggie Reisner, 17 goals, 21 assists. Ava Cronin, 20 goals, 13 assists, all seniors. Also, Lexi Pendleton, 14 goals and 11 assists. But it's not all seniors, as you have Sadie Tiemann, 8 goals, 21 assists. The 21 assists for a freshman is outstanding. Then Marley Rhodes has been really good, too, with 9 goals and 5 assists for a junior. It's an outstanding team for Minford. They've done great all throughout the year. They're 18-2. They lost to Marietta and Wheelersburg, and they avenged the Wheelersburg loss in a big way. So they have been, riding high as of late, but it's going to get very tough with the Madeira Amazons, the 2010 state champions. This is their 5th time in the Final Four. They made it last year. They're 18-1-2. They average 5.1 goals per game, and they give up an average of 0.4 goals per game. Here's the ridiculous thing. They have outscored their tournament opponents 37-0. So they have been very, very good. Now, Anna, I think it's Corneo, is a junior. She's a George Washington University commit, so Atlantic 10. She was first team All-Ohio as a sophomore, 36 goals and 13 assists on the year. She's going to be the player to stop, if the Falcons are going to have a chance on Tuesday night. Vivian Mompner, a senior, 14 goals, 11 assists. And then Natasha Davis, a junior, and Olivia Nagelli, a freshman, with 11 goals each. So the Amazons are, a machine. Now, here's where I mentioned that it could be an issue. The Amazons, are the number 1 team in Division III. I believe they are number 3 in the state on Max Preps, which takes into account all 5 divisions. For Madeira in the regional final, they beat the number 2 team somewhere between 4 and 6-0. So they are very
5-0 or.
No, it was one of the scores. I don't remember exactly. Oh, okay. I thought it was 6, but I don't want to say that incorrectly. So it was at least 4. But yeah, so for Minford, no matter what happens tomorrow or tonight, I guess, it's
where those games at?
That one's gonna be at Centerville. Me and Raymond, Dayton. Yeah, me and Raymond are gonna be there. Nice. He's gonna be taking some pictures. I'm gonna be giving updates. So 7:00. It's gonna be a really nice night too. It's gonna be extraordinarily unseasonably warm for November. I plan on walking to a certain place to cast my ballot early, and then I will be heading over towards Dayton way. Probably swinging by a Chick-fil-A on the way.
There you go.
Yeah, but Minford, it's uphill to climb, but at some point someone's got to do it. So good luck to the Falcons. It's been great following them throughout the season. So so now I'm going to move on to the boys' side. Before I get into Minford, I'm going to recap just a couple of the regional finals from the other day. Wheelersburg drops a 4-2 decision to Warsaw Riverview. That game was over at the Plains. They were actually down 4-0 at the half. I wrote a at-length story. I don't know if it's ever getting posted.
We'll see.
If it doesn't, Congrats to Wheelersburg on an outstanding season. 20-2 final. They got goals in the second half from Carter Rollins and Brody Wilburn. Ethan Hochstetler, another senior, played outstanding as well. Miller McKenzie, who's apparently the smartest person in the world, according to his perfect ACT score. Yeah, that's not bad. And then Carter Porter, and then, oh my gosh, Grant Williams. Where's it, Garrett? I'm mad now. Well, I typed the story. You would, if you saw the story, it would.
Which team are we talking about now?
Wheelersburg.
Oh, Wheelersburg. Okay.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, get all of it correct.
Can't be name dropping guys and
Garrett Williams.
Names wrong.
Yeah, Garrett Williams. So, who I did an interview with, was a very good interview too. I just want to make sure. Grant Williams is a basketball player, but so the
what
six.
Team does he play for?
I don't know, but he played the Celtics the other day.
Plays for the Hornets, I believe.
Okay. He did something dumb. But yeah, so Wheelersburg's going to graduate 6 seniors. I was really impressed with what their defense was able to do in the second half, because that Riverview team just really came at them throughout the first half. And really, they scored 2 times, each within 75 seconds of each other. So they scored one with 24 minutes left, then one with 23 minutes left. So it was what they say in soccer is it's the first 2 minutes after a goal is the most important time, and Riverview really took advantage of that. Then they scored with a little over 3 minutes left to make it 3-0, and then less than a minute later they scored again. So, and for Wheelersburg, it was literally nothing that Braden Bird could do different. He had 13 saves in the game. Really, in the second half, he didn't have to do a whole lot, but the first half was just constant pressure on him. Was outstanding, even though he gave up 4 goals. He probably would say he probably should have stopped a couple, but he had 2 or 3 diving saves, a couple really high saves that he had to punch over the top. Just did an outstanding job. They graduate 6 seniors, all starters, but they have, you have Nick Sylvia coming back, 58 goals on the season. He's a dude. He was double and tripled every time he touched the ball against Riverview, who's going to the Final Four, for the first time, but also for a reason. And they put a lot of pressure on him. And that's where, Huckstetler, Rollins, and Wilburn really, kind of shine in that second half. Colton Schwamberger's another one coming back. I have the roster up here anyway. But Andrew Tabor was really good the other day. Mason Billiter came off the bench, did a good job for him. Clark Weller is their right back and is outstanding. Evan Mitchell will be back next year as well. But possibly the most important, obviously you're going to say, Sylvia with 58 goals, but Braden Bird had 10 shutouts in his 13 games he played this year, so he'll be back as a senior. I don't know if they make it to the 20-win mark again, but I can see them having an outstanding season because they're a well-coached team. They play really well together, and should be a fun team to watch. So, moving on to another one. This one actually was probably more heartbreaking. Chillicothe loses to Columbus St. Francis de Sales 1-1, but 5-3 in a PK shootout. I don't know how you technically list it, if it's technically a loss or not, even though it goes as a tie. But ends up, it was Chillicothe's second time they ever played for a regional championship. Also, the second time they played against DeSales, they lost 2-0 in the previous meeting. This one, even more heartbreaking. It was, other teams maybe use, a David and Goliath stuff. I know Minford used it as well, but if you just look at the pure history of the two programs, it was Chillicothe's second ever regional championship game. It was the 19th time DeSales has won a regional championship game. 19 times in the state Final Four. They've won 7 state championships. They, even though I think they had 7 losses in the season, it doesn't really matter because they play the toughest schedule they can because they know it's going to get them ready for the postseason. Obviously, it did so again. But for Chillicothe, they get a first half goal from Carter Dunphy. I believe it was assisted by Landon Motts. They didn't have the amount of saves that Mott's had in the game, but it sounded like he played out of his mind. Isaac Hurley, Mason Brown, a couple other seniors. 13 seniors for the Cavaliers. So going to graduate that. They're going to, they're a well-coached team. They have some really good underclassmen coming up, but 13 seniors. They won 15 straight games to close out the season. They're starting off 3-3. And, they come up a little short, but just an outstanding performance. I know DeSales saved the first PK that Chillicothe took. DeSales went first. They made all 5. So Chillicothe had no chance at that point. But moving on, the Minford boys, 1-0 win over Grandview Heights. Also a 1-0 win over South Webster earlier in the week. So played outstanding defense throughout. They shut out a really high-powered Bobcats offense, and a lot of it was because Cade Glockner was outstanding, 14 saves. Carson Francis wrote about it. It was a nice article. It was very detailed on how good Glockner was and at different times. Gavin Downey gets credited with a goal with 10:45 to play in overtime. A lot of it goes to Miles Montgomery as he was able to beat the keeper off a deflection. It was rolling towards the goal, and Downey just made sure to put it in with no doubt in mind and started a really nice celebration for the Falcons. Now, I think I mentioned it last week where Ty Borland's back for the Falcons. He's a really good pitcher. Was missed most of the season. It was almost like picking up a free agent for the district tournament as he's been outstanding for them so far. Been a really big help for their defense, and him along with Alex Reeder, Aiden Slusher, Tate Johnson, Max Lauder, especially Reeder and Slusher, who I mentioned talking about that South Webster game, and they were not in the article. They were outstanding that night. Johnson and Lauder have been great, and Johnson and Lauder are the center backs, and they're going to be back again next year. But it's a team that you get a lot out of. Ashton Reeder in the midfield, Ethan Cordell in the midfield as well. It's a team that they've had some highs and lows throughout the season, but finishing on a massive high note as they have made it to the Final Four for the first time, joining Wheelersburg as a team in the SOC to make it. Also, Lucasville Valley, but it's in the other division, as Lucasville Valley was the first team ever to make it in the Southeast District. So for Minford, they play Wednesday, so maybe not the most important thing on Wednesday night. It will be. They're playing at Big Walnut. I will be there. I think Derek is taking pictures that night. I'm not 100% sure on that. So for Minford, they are on the Max Reps rankings, ranked number 3. They are playing the Kidron Central Christian Comets, who are 15-4-2. For the Comets, it's their 6th time in the Final Four, but the first time since 2017. They have never won a state championship. They finished second at least once. They don't score a ton. 2.62 goals per game. They only give up 1 goal per game. Not a whole lot about them online, but Ezra Coleman, a sophomore, and Aaron Meidel, a senior, were their scorers in the regional semis. They also did a really good job of shutting teams down in the tournament, especially in the regionals, as they won 2-1 and then 1-0 in the final. For the Falcons, first time in the Final Four, 18-3. They score 4.62 points a game, have given up 24 goals, so a little over 1 goal per game this year. They're led by Miles Montgomery, 36 goals, 24 assists. Ethan Cordell, 20 goals. He scored the game winner in the South Webster game from the penalty spot. Yeah. Gavin Downey scored the game winner in the regional final, 13 goals, 9 assists, and then Cade Glockner with 9 shutouts on the year. They play a lot of seniors, but they also have a lot of talented underclassmen as well. I believe Mark Napier, also a junior, along with Borland and Lauder. So they've got a nice group. Peyton Cottle as well.
They've got some athletes.
They got some athletes, and with Central Christian, KCC, they don't score a lot of goals, but they're going to play a really controlled possession style. But the fact they don't score a lot, not a super high-powered offense, I think maybe this could be the chance for the Southeast District to get over the hump. Now, I think Minford will tell you they're playing with house money. Anything can happen. It's great for their youth program to see what they've been able to put together over there in Minford. And, I know people are excited for Minford basketball, but they're going to have to wait at least another week because, this team has made a great run. They've been outstanding. It's really exciting to see what they've been able to do in the 5 divisions as they've made it to the next level. And, Grandview Heights has been kind of a thorn in the side of the Southeast District, but I thoroughly enjoy that 2 times in the last 5 years a Southeast District team has knocked them off. And it's very delightful based on how they act when they do win. So it's great to see them lose from time to time. I'm just being like it. They weren't the super most likable kids, and coaches, seeing them. So shout out to Minford, Coach Hackworth, Coach Tiemann. Good luck to both those teams moving forward this week. Going to be, like I said, going to be tough, but that's why you play the game.
All right. I'm going to move on to volleyball.
Yeah, volleyballing.
All right. It's our last team for volleyball that's left. Obviously moving on to the state tournament, the Adena Warriors with a win in 4 sets over Wheelersburg in the regional final this past Saturday. It was Carson and Shane. You were there as well. On the call for the Warriors win. Probably one of the more anticipated volleyball matchups in our coverage area this season, especially in Division 5. I mean, just kind of looking from the outside in, at least for me personally, once the brackets were released, it was always like, we're going to get this Adena and Wheelersburg matchup in the regional final. And there were some, maybe surprising outcomes on the way to that matchup, but nonetheless, we still got the Warriors and the Pirates. And the best part about this match, even though it's finished up in 4 sets, both teams getting to the 20-point benchmark in all 4 sets. So, if you go back and watch that stream, it's like 2.5 hours because, there's just so many points being scored. So Adena wins it 3-1 by set scores of 25-21, 23-25, 25-22, and 25-20. So just a really good showcase of what the best volleyball that the Southeast District has to offer, and it's one of those cases where it's just unfortunate that only one team can move on, but at the same time, the Southeast District is very fortunate that they were able to have 3 out of the 4 teams in the regional tournament come out of the Southeast District. I think that's something that always benefits us, is we get to have 3 district champions move on to the regional final or the regional tournament. Right. So hopefully Adena can show us, or not show us off, that's a weird way of wording it. Right. Hopefully Adena can represent us well, I believe this Thursday over at Wright State.
At the Nutter Center.
Taking on...
Well, your boy had all his classes at the Nutter Center. Love the Nutter Center.
Adena will be taking on Mentor Lake Catholic, the defending back-to-back state champs, so definitely an uphill battle. Obviously, Fantastic 50 will not be providing set lines for this one, but I believe Adena probably an underdog going in, just purely based on who they're playing. Mentor Lake 22-4, Adena 24-3. Yeah, and it's a spot Adena's been to before, right? We've mentioned it. They're a 2-time state champ. It'll be their 11th time in the Final Four for Mentor Lake. It's also their 11th time in the Final Four. Obviously, they've won the state title back-to-back years. They've won it 3 times in school history. So,
now, at one point, Adena won it back-to-back times.
What year?
Did you know they were the first 2 state champions?
Really?
Yep, 75-76. Or maybe 76-77. Either way, they won the first 2.
And obviously for Adena, had that run to the Final Four a few years back in 2021. So it's their first trip to the Final Four since then. And this is a run for Adena that really started around the halfway point of the season, maybe a little bit before. They've won 18 consecutive matches. I believe before that set 2 loss to Wheelersburg, they'd won like 22 or 3 consecutive sets. I think that was the only set they'd lost in the tournament up to this point.
Man, if you watch the 3rd set of the Zane Trace game, It felt like they were going to lose that about...
It was 24-18.
Yeah.
24-18.
At least 6 times you thought they were going to lose it. But, yeah, so for, Minder Lake Catholics, the number 1 team in the state, Adena 11th, and 18 straight wins, as you mentioned, for Adena. Corinne Day was outstanding on Saturday. She's always been really good, but she really took over the match in that one. Katie Burns, I believe, was first team All Ohio and had 22 kills in that match. Kimmy Dalton, SVC Defensive Player of the Year, 36 digs, was all over the court. JC Smith, 24 digs. Then you throw in Cameron Sowers, Burns. JC Jones has played a little bit on the back row. Courtney Sowers as well. They have some players that can do it and fill in, and it's really tough to score. We watched Wheelersburg make 4 total hitting errors against Union Local, who's really good, but they knew wherever they shot it was going down. Against Adena, they made way more errors, but a lot of it, to me, goes to Adena because when you don't know, the ball seems like it's never going to hit the ground because how outstanding, Dalton gets everywhere. Smith does a really good job covering her area. Sowers, like we mentioned, they do such a good job of covering their space that it's very, very difficult to ever score on them. And then you've got some really good length at the net with, Burns and Day, Addison Wisecup, Caroline Glandon, different players that fill in. Kayla Grooms and Courtney Sowers both do a good job of setting. A lot of times it's going to 2 players. The sets are going to 2 players for the most part. But do you know what? You got to stop it.
Nobody stopped it so far.
Yeah, and they made that adjustment. I know it was kind of late in camp that Burns went from being the setter
to... It wasn't even camp. I mean, you can look at the box scores, and that 5-set loss to South Webster, it was Burns and Grooms, the 2 setters, and you look at the box score. I think Unioda, maybe it was Southeastern, was their next match, and it was the younger Sowers was in their setting, so it was obviously a quick adjustment, but all the way up to the first match of the season, it was still. Instead of Grooms and Sowers, it was Grooms and Burns. So obviously with Sowers sliding in, I'm not Mr. Volleyball over here, but it obviously will give Burns a lot more opportunities swinging both out of the middle and on the outside. Yeah, so for Adena, we've kind of, we even kind of joked about it a little bit today of, playing the underdog role and whatnot. But out of their 6 All-SVC players from last year, they had to replace 5 of them. And they seem like, they lost in the regional semis last year. So they seem like a team that is, they work so well together, and you can tell they're playing for each other. And that has taken them to the next level. That's taken them back to the Nutter Center, giving them a chance to play in the state semifinals. Now they're going to play this, this really good Minter Lake Catholic. The Cougars are really talented. Natalia Bergant, 5'11" senior, Anna Bergant, a 6'1" sophomore. I wonder if that's Bergeant or something French, maybe.
I'm going Bergant.
Burger. That's fine.
I have 2 different spellings for the last names too, so I think it's int. And then the next one, Ava and Avery Beedris Rennie, 5'11" and 5'9" seniors. All of them average over 2.5 kills per set. Yeah. Ava Starr with 788 assists on the year.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, 10.5 assists per set for them. They played a really tough schedule. They're a really good team. But you know what? They've lost 4 times this year. No matter who they play against, that shows. Even though last year they went 29-0, little less human when you look at it that way. This year, 22-4, probably just as talented, just as good, but they are a little more human because they have lost before. So you never know. Let's go Warriors.
You said for Adena, 5 of their 6 all-league selections left. Was Day not an all-league selection last year? Wow. 2 kills per set?
Mm-hmm.
Not an all-league selection?
Mm-mm.
All right.
I mean, Burns was awesome this year and wasn't the player of the year. So, first team Ohio, not player of the year.
The unfortunate thing, we can just move on.
Nope. You started.
Well, I was just going to say that, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's unfortunate because, everybody's going to get their opportunity. And for Burns, she's still a junior.
Yeah.
Right? So she's still going to have another year.
But what if she doesn't have the same year? What if someone else steps up and does it?
You've seen things like that in the NBA, for example. There was that stretch where, it was just kind of like, we're just going to hand out an MVP every year to the best player that hadn't won one. To where, I think it was maybe James Harden won his, but maybe it wasn't James Harden. Maybe it was Russell Westbrook. One of the years they just gave it to him, and his Harden. Next year was way better than the year prior, but they gave it to somebody else because they gave it to him last year. So, you see it even in professional settings, but I would say Katie Burns definitely the early favorite for SVC Player of the Year next year. I would say that would be a safe assumption to make heading into next season. But obviously for Adena, still worried about this year. Right now, worried about next year's state Final Four matchup this Thursday at the Nutter Center. Do you know what time?
6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
Now, if you are going to the Nutter Center, it is one ticket for the entire day. They're playing Division 7 first, so they have matches at 12. 2, and then Division 5 is at 4 and 6. So the Adena Boosters, which is one of the better informational accounts that is in our area, they shared the thing. I put it out on the SVC Sports Talk Facebook. I don't the Twitter's gone, but it's on the Facebook now, where it's kind of like hey, buy the 12 o'clock game. Don't buy it from anyone else. It's for the OHSA. And
is
so
the Twitter gone?
Huh?
You delete it?
Oh yeah. I deactivated it. I think it might be within 30 days, so I probably could get it back. I'm not doing it though. I'm standing my ground at something.
There you go.
Not much, but yeah. So should be some outstanding volleyball over there. And I know the other divisions are playing at Dayton area schools. The finals will all be at the Nutter Center, which I believe is going to be like a one ticket gets all day as well, but I don't know for sure. Now, if they do win, they would play early on Friday because that makes sense.
Right. I like
whatever.
What, like noon or something?
I think it's 4 games, so I think it's like 10 and 1. So I think it would be 1. And I think it's like 10, 1, 4, 7, something like that.
7? They're going to play the same time that footballs are going on? Makes no sense.
Dude, it wouldn't.
Why wouldn't you just push them to Saturday?
Because
that would make more sense.
There's a lot of things that would make more sense.
Especially if there's that many, you could almost stagger them. Like even if you wanted to do some.
But it could be like.
Well, you could.
It could be 11, 1, 3, and 5.
Or you could just right. So there's 4. So you could do Friday 12 and 2 and Saturday 12 and 2.
But you got to do a lot because you're playing 7 championships.
Okay, then you do Sunday 12 and 2.
They ain't doing Sunday.
They just did. They did.
No,
the regional,
they'll never play on Sunday.
They just did the regional finals.
Well, at some
which
point,
game were we talking about? Was it Minford boys that played
Minford
on Sunday?
Boys played on Sunday. I was like, this is stupid. This is definitely wrong on the website. And they're like, nope, they're playing these games. And then I did not know Carson's game was starting at 1. I was like, did this dude just not do updates for the whole first half? Like, I'm watching a game that's 4-0 at halftime. I'm like, where are Carson's updates? Like, is it worse than this? Then shout out to Wheelersburg for battling, because that wasn't super fun in the first half. But so I'm ready to take a nap.
Yeah,
I know I'm not going to watch anything at all on TV tomorrow. Today, whatever. Let's get this over with.
Fun week.
I saw this. If you're watching now, you're probably not watching or actually care, but I saw a tweet where it said, if you vote early, you should get like a QR code that you can scan and put on your TV that wipes out all political commercials. I would have voted in May if that would have happened, because these are, oh man, it
would almost have to be like a political, like every, I don't even know how you would do that. You would just have to have like a system to where it's just like all politically free, like free of political advertisement. You scan it and it just flips your television, like YouTube TV or Spectrum.
Well, that's why I got YouTube TV, so like they should be able to do it. But I just love and I'll put on a YouTube video.
Yeah, same thing.
At night when I'm like laying down, and so just kind of have a background noise.
Bernie Moreno.
Yeah, it's just yelling about Bernie Moreno and Sherrod Brown. Like, at least do it about the presidents. At least do it on the presidential candidates. Like, I really I probably should care more about our senators, but I don't. But so I am very, very, very ready for that to be over. But like I said, and I held off on it because one of our own, he hasn't worked for us for a year, Tyler Hart. I held off on saying it because his dog was missing, where it was like I wanted Facebook to be back to what it was before, which also included unnecessarily large amount of missing pets. But I held off from saying it because, Tyler is our guy, and his dog was missing, and it was gone for like 5 days.
4, I think.
4, and they got it back.
I did, lucky.
So, it is lucky. So, shout out Facebook for doing what it was there for, which was finding lost pets, and they were able to get it back. So, shout out Lucky and the Hart family, because that would suck.
Mm-hmm. Well, it probably did suck for, 96 hours.
Yeah, and you probably gave up after 48.
Yeah,
so...
Well,
shout out those people.
I will say, it seems like we're almost on the other side of what will hopefully be done after this week. But I have
it won't.
Bad
we
feeling.
Talked about that the other day.
Yeah, I have a bad feeling this might be going on until, maybe next.
Just not baseball season.
Maybe next March is how far it could drag out.
Get it all out of the way by March Madness, and then it won't be.
I just just don't make Christmas time miserable, please.
Yeah.
It's the only somewhat enjoyable time.
It's a wonderful Christmas time.
All right. We previewed a bunch of stuff. Not really a bunch. We just went a little more in depth into the 3 state tournament teams. Talked a little bit about some of the Week 12 matchups. Obviously, no more volleyball streams for us with them moving to the state tournament. I will be down in Eastern this Friday as they host the South Gallia Rebels rematch. Between those two, they met up in Week 9 for an SOC 1 conference matchup. So should be a fun week of high school sports. Obviously, if you're supportive of either Adena or Minford, you want to show out not only for your team but for the Southeast District, head over to Centerville or whatever they're having the
Centerville on Tuesday, and if you want to avoid TV on Tuesday, it's a great time to go watch that game as well. That's one of the reasons I'm doing it. But Wednesday, Minford boys are at Big Walnut, and then, like we said, Thursday, Adena girls are at the Nutter Center in Dayton. Yeah, so it's should be a fun week. Make sure you follow along on SOSA Ohio, see who's covering what, and by who's covering it means me and Derek. On those games. I think Brock might have some coverage as well, but we'll have lots of pictures and whatnot. The post-game interviews will be a little different. The one thing shouldn't be available because you have to do all your stuff within the press conference room. Like we can't do the one-on-one interviews or the two-on-one.
Oh, yeah,
those are gone for the state. And actually, I think I would have them still because it's at the places that have press conferences. But
so I wonder what will happen if one of our teams win.
They'll find a way. It's just it is what it is. As of now, we're not being paid to do it. We're not being paid to do it, so I'm not doing it until we're paid to do it. Once we're paid to do it, then I'll bend the knee a little bit, but there's something else I was gonna mention. Also, Friday night, make sure you follow. We should have people all over the place.
Yeah,
because we still have several teams playing, so we'll have coverage of a lot of these games.
Right. I know Derek will be where we're at Eastern. I'm guessing Brock probably going to Bishop Watterson. I would assume somebody probably going to Ironton. That'll probably be Tyler or Austin.
And Austin. Well, then Austin will probably be at the Rock.
I was going to say one of them might go to Fairland as well.
Yeah.
You didn't. Put
We didn't even
Fairland
mention
on there.
Fairland.
Yeah, Fairland.
Sorry, Dragons.
Fairland took down Zane Trace 31-7. I'm not sure. I don't remember who they're taking on, but
Wow.
so considering they were the 2 seed, definitely a home game for the Dragons.
See, I told you.
He put the script together. Not my fault.
I put the script together, and I told you I was just going through like, oh yeah, this team won, whatever. So let's see. I'm gonna pull this up real quick, and I'm gonna act like I didn't.
I would assume.
West Muskingum. So they are
okay.
4-point dogs, but I mean, you know what?
That's. I would
Beat
assume
'em.
Tyler or Austin will probably be.
Yeah, that should be a good game.
That's almost 2 area teams. West Muskingum's like right on the outside of.
Yeah.
They have a cooler logo. It's like
The
half
tornadoes,
West Virginia,
yeah.
and then it's like an M or something. I don't know, but
they're my worst sports moment was there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I split a pair of free throws. On the second one, we got called for an over the back foul or push in the back, whatever you want to call it. They made both free throws, so we went down one. I got the throw in, and for some reason I left my feet. And when I went to throw it down court to our other guard that was streaking down court, it was not him. It was the referee. So then I got caught in the air, just kind of threw it, and got intercepted, and I turned it over. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. You know the worst part?
Tornadoes.
You know what the worst part? They definitely fouled me on purpose because they wanted to get the ball back at the very least. It was kind of dumb. It was a terrible strategy. But it worked because it's JV basketball.
Obviously, nobody's still watching at this point, but if you were wondering why we didn't do power rankings, our final ones were last week, so
I can't believe I missed Fairland.
no more football power rankings for us. If anybody was watching that segment, they're probably very unhappy. But it is what it is. Hopefully the Dragons are able to get a win, and if we do an episode next week, we'll talk about them then. So I think
I'll tweet about why I screwed up.
Yeah, I think we might restart power rankings for basketball.
Yeah.
We're not really sure how we're going to do it. Maybe by, obviously we'll do some boys and girls ones. I don't know if we'll maybe split it up by division. With 7 divisions, probably not. Maybe when there were 4.
I got my top 3 in basketball, girls basketball.
All right, unless you have anything.
Actually, maybe boys basketball too. But let's have a good night. Let's go Falcons. Let's go Warriors. Let's go all the football teams, including Fairland, definitely. It should be. Let's have a fun week.
Alrighty, that'll wrap it up. Stay tuned. We'll probably post on Twitter if we plan on doing another episode for the fall or not. So that's at SOSA Overtime on X.
The everything app.
That's where you'll find out if we're doing an episode next week. If we are, it'll be on Tuesday, 10 a.m. every week is when these come out. So, all right, that'll wrap it up for this week's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfection.